Okay, so let's turn our books over to page 133. We're still in lesson F, another view. Okay, so here we're going to be talking about 3 uses of the present perfect tense. All right. Now, before we jump into all this, let's rewind a little bit and let's remind ourselves what the present perfect tense is. We've covered so many different tenses in this unit and in level 3 that now that we're at the end, it's kind of hard to remember exactly what some of these tenses are. So let's look at present perfect tense again. All right. The present perfect tense is a verb tense, which is used to show that an action has taken place once or many times before now, before the present. Okay. The present perfect tense is most frequently used to talk about experiences or changes that have taken place. All right. So if you look at my my graph here, my representation, it's things that have happened in the past, maybe once or many times. Okay. Present perfect forms. All right. This is the form. The present perfect the present perfect tense is formed by using has or have, depending on who you're talking about, right? I have, you have, she, he, it has, we, they have, right? Plus the past participle of the verb, right? Now remember, the past participle of the verb, all right? We're gonna go over that in a little while, but just remember that it's has or have plus the past participle of the verb. Questions are indicated by inverting the subject and has, have. All right? We've seen this before. Negatives are made with not. Okay? So let's look at some examples here of the present perfect tense. A general statement. You have seen that movie many times. Have seen. Have plus the past participle of the word see. So that's seen. Okay? See, saw, seen. Question. In the question, remember, we flip the subject and has or have, right? Depending on who you're talking to or about. For instance, have you seen that movie many times? Okay. See how we flipped have you? Before it was you have. Now it's have you. Have you seen that movie many times? Let's talk about the negative statements. Remember, negatives are made with not, right? You have not seen that movie many times. So now not goes between our has, have, and our past participle. You have not seen that movie many times. Okay, let's move on. Let's look at a few more examples and how we use them when we're talking to or about different people. So we have positive statements, we have negative statements, and then we have questions, right? I have traveled. You have traveled. We have traveled. They have traveled. All right? Now, when we change and we talk about third person, he, she, it has traveled. Notice we changed it here. The have turns into has. He has traveled. Negative statements. Remember, we add the not between the have or has and then the past participle. I have not traveled. You have not traveled. We have not traveled. they have not traveled. Now, when we talk about he, she, or it has not traveled, we've changed our have to has. Okay, so let's move over to the question, right? Now, this is where we flip the subject and have has, right? So, have I traveled? Have you traveled? Have we traveled? Have they traveled? Okay. Now, has he traveled? Has she traveled? Has it traveled? All right. So notice we changed the have to has when we're talking about he, she, or it. All right. Okay. So let's go on to talk about the verbs that we use in the present perfect tense. All right. The verbs that we use in the present perfect tense are used in the past participle tense. Okay, and that's fine for most verbs. We really don't even notice the change. But when we're talking about irregular verbs, that's when we see the change. All right. So remember, present perfect tense uses irregular verbs in the past participle tense. All right, and we've gone over this before, so hopefully this will remind you of how to use these. But let's go over a few and see the difference. All right, so the infinitive or the or the base verb. All right, think of this infinitive as the base. Right, so base would be or to be. Past participle is was or were, depending on who you're talking about or talking to. Right. I was, you were, I was, you were, he, she, it were, he, she, it was, right? He was, and they and we were, okay? So that's the simple that's the past simple, and then past participle is been, right? So be, was, were, been, okay? Now remember that the be, to be verb is the most used verb in English, and it is the most complex, the hardest verb, okay, to really understand. So that's why we see so many choices here, especially in the past simple. All right, let's move on. Become, right? Base verb become, past simple became, past participle become. Begin, began, begun. Bring, brought, brought. Buy, bought, bought. Choose, chose, chosen. Come, came, come. Do, did, done. Drink, drank, drunk. And drive, drove, driven. All right. Now, in the earlier in the class, I handed out a whole list of verbs in the past, irregular verbs in the past participle, so we could practice those and remind ourselves how to say them, what the base verb is, where they're derived from, things like that. I've also put that sheet on the WhatsApp classroom group there for us to download. But if you need, and if you have lost it or you don't have access to it or didn't get it, please let me know and I will resend it and make sure that everybody gets that, because in order to work with the present perfect tense, when we come to irregular verbs, we have to use the past participle of tense of that verb. Okay? All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Now let's move on. All right, so page 133. All right, so now we're back here. Grammar connections. 3 uses of the present perfect. There are 3 uses of the present perfect. 1. Events that began in the past and continue now. All right. An example of that is Keiko has taken English classes for 6 years. That's an event that began in the past and continues to now. Has taken. Okay. Okay. Another use for present perfect are events that have happened before now, a time unclear. All right, events that have happened before now, so in the past, basically. All right, but the time is unclear. There's not a specific time in the past. An example of that is Jason has been to Canada. Okay, Jason has been to Canada. And then the last use for the present perfect, events that were repeated before now. All right, events that were repeated before now. So this is events that happened in the past and were repeated. Okay, an example of this is I have flown on a plane 6 times. Right, I have flown on a plane 6 times. So the 3 uses of the present perfect, events that began in the past and continue to now. This is the most used version. Okay, this is the most used version of present perfect tense. This is the one you're going to hear the most in use in English language. The next one is events that have happened before now in a time in the past that's unclear. And then events that were repeated before now. So things that happened over and over again in the past. All right. You can also, if you have difficulty or problems understanding these 3 uses, especially these last 2, you can scan this barcode and watch a brief video on the explanation of this as well. All right. Okay, so we've talked about the 3 uses of the present perfect, and we've been given some examples. All right. So now, talk with your classmates. Complete the chart. Question is, have you been to another country on vacation, Elena? She would answer, no, I haven't. Have you been to another country on vacation, Jason? He would answer, yes, I have. I've been to Canada. Okay, so the answers have been in the present perfect. All right, no, I haven't, or no, I have not. Right, or in Jason's case, yes, I have. I have been to Canada. All right. So this exercise would ask you to find someone who has been to another country on vacation and put their name. Find someone who has taken English classes for more than 5 years. Find someone who hasn't missed a class since the beginning of the term. Find someone who hasn't changed his or her hairstyle in the last 5 years. Find someone who has flown on a plane more than once. Find someone who has seen snow. Find someone who has stopped online has shopped online a lot recently. Find someone who hasn't sent a text message in the last 24 hours. Find someone who has lived in the same place for more than 10 years. Find someone who has lived in this country for less than a year. And then lastly, find someone who hasn't traveled by bus before. Okay? And once you find all these people, there will be a challenge to find all of these, right? But as many as you can. Share the information about your classmates, right? And how that would sound is Jason has been to Canada on vacation. Has been, right? Kiko has taken English classes for 6 years. Has taken, all right? So if you can find these people, right, maybe in the class or maybe at home or maybe in your neighbors or friends, it'd be a good chance to practice this and to write it out so that you understand the present perfect tense, okay, and their uses. All right, excellent. All right, so now we're at the unit summary. All right, free time, vacation plans. All right, so let's go over our summary. We've been talking about free time, right? And we started out talking about these 6 pictures. And it turns out that it's Ricardo and Felicia planning a vacation with their daughter, Michelle. And they are trying to choose between 2 places, right? Either going to San Francisco, flying to San Francisco, or going camping. So what they start to do is to look at their budget, look at how much these trips are going to cost, right? And as they're doing their research online about going to San Francisco, with the flight and the transportation, the cost of food, the cost of the hotel, it's going to cost them a lot of money, all right? Like $1,500. But if they go camping, that's going to cost them a lot less. And the biggest thing here for them is that Michelle, their daughter, is going to have a good time. So she'll have a better time. They'll save a lot more money. And I'm pretty sure when they come back from vacation, they'll be a lot less stressed because they've saved that much money. All right, let's move on. Okay, so let's talk about Unit 10, vocabulary words and phrases. These are the vocabulary words and phrases that we learned in this unit. All right. So the first is a phrase, right? Book a flight. Book a flight. The next is a word, camping. Camping. Days off. This is a phrase. Days off. Discounts. Discounts. Exhausted. Exhausted. When we see the EXH, it's almost like an ex, like a ex, EZZ almost, you know, exhausted or exhausted. Figure out. Figure out. The next one is reserve. Reserve. The next is a phrase with a colon, with a dash, right? It's round trip. This is supposed to be one word, okay? Round trip. The next word is tax. Then the last word is tourist. Tourist. Some more vocabulary words and phrases. Admission. Admission. Attraction. Attraction. Cells. Cells. Escape. Escape. Ferries. Ferries. So remember, ferries is plural, all right? The singular form is ferry, right? A boat. Ferries are multiple boats. The next is a phrase, in advance. In advance. Then prison, prison. And then the last word is sell out. Sell out. All right? So those are our vocabulary words and phrases for Unit 10. All right. Let's move on.